Good day, dear colleagues. My name is Andrei Robachevsky, and I work in the Internet Society. Today, I wanted to share with you some of the initiatives that we initiated, that we are currently conducting, or that we plan to start, and have a direct impact on today's session. The title of my presentation is "How much do we know about the reliability of the international routing system, and what are the ways to improve it?" Before we get on to my story of our initiatives, what is this global system? I think it would be right to say that this is a system where we are providers and where we compete between ourselves, but that's an area where cooperation and relying on each other's means is indispensable. You may have heard about the tragedy of communities where if one side of a community, one party of a community consumes all the resources, then the whole community will die out. So there should be a balance maintained if you want to live in a community. And the global internet structure is exactly that resource. The areas of configuration have an international impact. So if someone makes a mistake, like we saw in the previous presentation, this mistake, this error, will make others suffer. In April, there was the Indosat, the Indonesian provider, hijacked a considerable part of the internet. Global infrastructure has two aspects, and it's connectivity and interdependability. There are incoming and outgoing risks. We must protect internal resources, but we must also be aware of the external risks. If your network enables traffic spoofing, then you generate a risk for the environment, and you have to be aware of that. So, given this very difficult and complex infrastructure and ecosystem, the problem has several aspects. The technical factors. Technological solutions exist, but not everyone is aware of them. So there should be a common understanding of the problem and of the available solutions. Economic factors. They act against us. Many of these technical solutions, their implementation is not profitable for the operator, although they improve the general infrastructure. The operator doesn't benefit from them, only the community benefits. And social factors. Implementation of such technologies has a considerable social impact. To implement the technology, people must understand that they are not alone and they are not acting in isolation, and that there is support that they can get. There is a group of operators that believe in this new technology. That's the social factor. The first initiative that I wanted to share is the so-called Routing Resiliency Survey. Alexander has already discussed various anomalies in the global routing system. So we launched this project. It is still ongoing. It tries to answer the following question: what are the risks of the global routing system? How risky is this global routing system? We'll hear about hijacks, 400,000 leaks per week. If I'm an operator, I'm impressed, and at the same time I'm thinking that, well, it doesn't happen to me, it doesn't happen to my network, it happens elsewhere in the internet. So we are trying to understand what the operators feel and think, and how much do they think they can affect the functioning of the international network. So the survey contains two questions, basically: how often incidents happen, what is the frequency of incidents, and what is the effect that they produce on the operator. That's why, together with our partner, BGP Mon, we started monitoring the global routing system to detect hijacks. Our monitoring was quite simple. It was nothing sophisticated. We were only looking for hijacks. The participants of this project, on a weekly basis, receive digests about our suspicions and suspicious events that affected the prefixes of the networks. At first entry into this project, all the participants get historic data, the dynamics over, I don't know, 6 months or 12 months, depending on the intensity of events in that particular network. And then we will ask them, ask that ISP to classify these events. We need this for our statistical analysis. And with respect to every event, we ask the operator to tell us what was the effect of this event in qualitative terms. Was it an incident at all? Or maybe it was a normal change in the configuration? Yeah, an impact. And detection. How did ISP learn about this event? This is the dashboard. That's the control panel, basically, and that's how the overviews of events are provided. And then the operator will be able to check and classify all listed events. The project is not finished yet, so these are the preliminary results. The project has been running for the last 4 months. We had 25 participants, but because we allowed these participants to register their client networks, we ended up with more than 300 networks. Over a period of 4 months, we registered 442 events, and 264 events were classified. Because some of the participants, well, they kind of joined the project, but then they became inactive. They didn't want to classify their events. So if we look at the impact of incidences on the network, mostly you see green. Green means that there was no incident. So that was a normal change in configuration, which we only expected. But then you see some red bars on this chart from time to time. The color red appears on the chart, and every time you see red, it means that it was a serious incident that led to the loss of functionality, of workability of this network. So the incidents make an impact. And speaking about that impact, well, 4% of all incidents either produced a severe or moderate effect on the network. More than one half. If we look at non-classified incidents, right, then, well, 3/4 of incidents were configurations. So in this sense, sometimes it is difficult to understand how risky the global routing system is just by looking at changes in BGP as an outsider, if you are not provided. So we had a lot of false positives. Another interesting pie chart answers the question, how did you learn about the incident? Customer call, well, that's a good, solid, tried and tested monitoring system. The green shows you alert from our system, but majority was configuration, not an incident. Not that many providers are engaged in active monitoring, which came out as a surprise. If you want to join us, then the project will last for another month. So if you still want to join, please write to this address. You will be connected, or at least you will get historic data for your events. And there are two other initiatives that go under one title, better responsibility and cooperation for better network. So the idea is to provide a unified approach to solving complex issues based on principles and recommendations of the vast network community. There are best practices, there are a lot of documents, but what is missing is to understand, to see who is supporting those practices and how many ISPs really believe that this is the most important issue that needs the attention of the whole community. Another thing, we keep talking about self-organization, we keep talking about bottom-up, but it all starts here to show that the industry, our industry, is capable of dealing with issues. We're not waiting for a regulator. We're not waiting for our mommy to tell us and to come and tell us what to do. But we can self-organize, and as an industry, we can stand together and embark on the most astonishing challenges. So we started routing resilience manifesto development. It is a document that will contain common principles and recommendations. Recommendations are not about how you configure your router, but they are the key points that the community believes to be the minimal standard that everyone must follow to ensure the well-being of the whole network. The project currently is at its initial stage. Some operators are drafting the document, but very soon we expect to make it available for a broader community, including ENOG, so that we can get the broadest possible feedback. 3 calls. It is really not a very big document, but multiplied by the vast representation, I think we will be able to make a difference. So we call upon the community to prevent distribution of fake routing information. We call upon the community to stimulate communication and to prevent spoofing. So let's talk about all of these 3 calls. Here on the slides you will see the English versions because the document has been drafted in the English language. So we'll start with preventing propagation of incorrect routing information.
The minimal packet in your network and in client's network. IS path and prefix filtration. And sharing it with your neighbors, sharing the right things with your neighbors. You can publish it in a database, you can put it on a piece of paper if you like, but please share this information. It's not rocket science. It's no rocket science, it's very reasonable and does not require a lot of expenses. Antispoofing, which is a complicated issue. In some configurations it's very tricky, but the minimal requirement is the validity check of the source address for the single-homed users and the filtration. And you need to facilitate global operational communication and coordination between the network operators. Sometimes it's kind of challenging if there is a problem in a network. It's challenging to find this network, especially if it's somewhere else on the other side of the world, and sometimes this information may be missing and may be incorrect. The following steps complete the document, start the discussion of the document in a community like ENOG, for example, and create a web resource where the operators can publicly show that they support this manifest. And promoting these recommendations. And one final initiative, it will just take 1 more minute, is the anti-spoofing movement. The idea is simple. What we would like to do is a positive spin, name and shame. If the network can show that it does some anti-spoofing measures and does not create the fake sources of traffic, this network can put its name on the web resource, the anti-spoofing web resource. The verification is done at the Spoofa project, which checks and verifies the transparency of the network for spoofing, but we also consider other options and other solutions for more precise identification. And once again, I would like to say that all these initiatives are to draw more attention to these issues and show that you will not be doing it on your own, you will not be put in vacuum, but it's supported by a large group of operators, showing that you will be able to take control over it, and we want you to follow our example. We've also made a billboard. It's not a billboard, so it's a leaflet, of course. It's a leaflet. It's a leaflet. You can find the leaflets over there on the desk. Collaboration for secure and resilient internet. Please take a copy. And here I would like to say thanks. Thank you very much. No questions. Gennady Abramov, Zauling Communications. It's a comment. I think what would deal with in this project we know that the technology which is used in BGP was not created for such a huge network like the modern internet, and it's not suited to resolve its problems. But I think we should move forward to developing new technologies, new routing technologies. I partially agree with you. There may be some revolutionary or evolutionary solutions coming up. There are some of these technologies already available that enhance the quality of the global routing, but some of the DNS-related problems were supposed to be resolved by DNSSEC, and you know how much time it takes to implement these technologies, to say nothing about more revolutionary things. Yes, I do agree with you, but the actual fact that there is also a cultural context everywhere. We do not put litter in the streets, and some people put litter in the streets. It's just a matter of their social upbringing and culture, inner culture, and it's just like here. It's more about the attitude of people rather than the technology. You cannot just cope with all these problems just with the use of pure technology. Yes, of course, these two things are interrelated. Thank you very much. I don't have a question, it's a comment. Unfortunately, like it was pointed out by Andrei, it's not just a technology problem, but it's a human nature problem. You need to make an action to make sure that the people around you feel safer and more comfortable, but you will not feel the result of this activity of yours. And that's where the fundamental roots of problem lie. If you take a look at Asia, it's hell compared to what we have here. We need to establish the feedback for network operators, positive feedback, those operators who spend a lot of effort to make their network better and cleaner. I think name and shame is not just the only criteria which will be suitable here. Certainly name and shame does not necessarily work, and we would definitely need to be more positive, especially if we speak about anti-spoofing movement. But why do we think we gather here, for instance? We do it to learn that things that you do are right things because other people also do it and think it's right. And the social aspect to it can also and should also be stimulated. And the second idea of mine, nix.cz and the secure VLAN, that Czech presentation, I think it's a good presentation, a good reason, and a nice project. Nix.cz.